the casebook of Sherlock Holmes, 1927, Episode 7, The Lion's Mane. Welcome back, fellow detectives. After witnessing Professor Presbury's horrifying transformation, you've seen the dangers of pursuing youth at any cost. Today's case is unique. Holmes himself narrates his own investigation from his retirement in Sussex, proving that even in peaceful seclusion, mystery and danger can strike. Have you ever encountered death so mysterious that no human culprit seems possible? Prepare for one of Holmes's most unusual cases, where the killer is not a person at all, and where knowledge of natural science proves more crucial than criminal psychology. It is a most singular thing. Holmes begins his narrative that a problem which was certainly as abstruse and unusual as any which I have faced in my long professional career should have come to me after my retirement and be brought, as it were, to my very door. It occurred after my withdrawal to my little Sussex home, when I had given myself up entirely to that soothing life of nature for which I had so often yearned. Picture the Sussex coast in July 1907. Holmes, now fully retired, lives in a small cottage on the cliffs overlooking the channel. His days are spent tending his beehives, taking long walks along the beach, and enjoying the peace he's earned. But on this particular morning, that peace is shattered by a terrible cry from the beach below. Holmes is walking the cliff path when he hears it, a scream of pure agony that echoes off the rocks. He rushes toward the sound and finds a man staggering from the water, his face twisted in unspeakable pain. It's Fitzroy Macpherson, a science master from the nearby coaching establishment, a man Holmes knows slightly from passing encounters. "Macpherson!" Holmes calls, reaching to support him, but Macpherson can barely stand, his body racked with convulsions. His back and shoulders are covered in strange welts, dark lines crisscrossing his skin like whip marks. "The lion's mane," Macpherson gasps. "The lion's mane. Oh my God, help me!" Then he collapses, dead, before Holmes can summon medical assistance. Think about this opening, detective. A man emerges from swimming, his body covered in mysterious wounds, dying within minutes while speaking cryptic words about a lion's mane. What could cause such rapid, agonizing death? Holmes examines the scene carefully. Macpherson's towel and clothes lie on the rocks where he left them before swimming. There's no sign of struggle, no footprints besides his own leading to and from the water. His dog, a small terrier who'd accompanied him, huddles nearby, whimpering but unharmed. The dog clearly saw something that terrified it, but shows no signs of having been attacked. "I knew," Holmes narrates, "that I was faced with a problem of extraordinary difficulty. Macpherson had clearly been in the sea. His hair was wet with salt water, yet he had emerged onto the beach alone, with no attacker visible. The wounds on his back suggested some kind of lashing, yet there was no weapon, no assailant, no motive that I could perceive." The local constabulary arrived, led by Inspector Bardell, who's pleased to have Holmes's assistance. "Mr. Holmes, this is a terrible business. Macpherson was a fine young man, well-liked, had no enemies that we know of. What could have caused such injuries?" Holmes examines the body more closely. "These marks are unlike any I've seen. Not knife wounds, not rope burns, something else entirely, and they appeared within moments of his leaving the water. Can you see the impossibility? A man swims alone in a calm sea, emerges minutes later dying from mysterious wounds. No one else was in the water. No one was on the beach, yet something killed him with terrible efficiency." Holmes investigates Macpherson's background. He was a science master at a local coaching establishment specializing in natural sciences. He'd been engaged to Maud Bellamy, daughter of a local physician, though the engagement was opposed by her father for financial reasons. So we have a romantic complication, Holmes notes, but I can't see how jealousy could produce these specific injuries. Holmes interviews the other masters at the coaching establishment. One man interests him particularly, Ian Murdoch, a mathematics teacher who was also in love with Maud Bellamy. Murdoch makes no secret of his jealousy. Macpherson was a rival. Yes, I loved Maud and she chose him, but I didn't kill him. I was in my room working when he went for his swim. I didn't even know he'd gone until news of his death reached us. But Holmes notices something. Murdoch's hands shake slightly when he speaks of Macpherson. Is this guilt or merely the nervousness of a man who knows he's a suspect? Holmes cannot yet determine. 2 days pass, and Holmes spends them researching, thinking, walking the beach, repeatedly examining the scene. Then tragedy strikes again. Murdoch's dog, a larger animal than Macpherson's terrier, is found dead on the same stretch of beach, its body covered with the same mysterious welts. The dog, Holmes notes grimly, clearly encountered the same thing that killed Macpherson. But what? Think about this development. The killer, whatever it is, remains active and dangerous. Dogs don't swim far from shore, which suggests the threat is in shallow water, close to the beach. But no one has seen anything unusual. Holmes intensifies his research, combing through every natural science text in his collection. Macpherson was a science master, Holmes explains in his narrative, and his dying words were the lion's mane. I became convinced these words were not metaphorical, but literal, referring to something he recognized in his final moments. But what has a lion's mane and lives in the sea? On the third day, tragedy threatens to strike a third time. Holmes is on the beach when Murdoch appears, looking distraught. Mr. Holmes, I must speak with you about... He breaks off, staring at the water. There, in the shallow water, do you see it? Holmes follows his gaze and sees something floating just beneath the surface, a mass of translucent tendrils trailing through the water like a ghostly mane. The lion's mane jellyfish, Holmes exclaims, Cyanea capillata, one of the largest jellyfish species with tentacles that can trail 40 feet or more. Even as he speaks, Murdoch stumbles forward toward the water, drawn by grief or desperation. No! Holmes shouts, grabbing Murdoch and pulling him back. Don't go near it. Those tentacles contain one of nature's most potent toxins. Can you see the revelation? The killer isn't human at all. It's a massive jellyfish, its nearly invisible tentacles spreading through the shallow water like a net. Macpherson swam directly into it, the tentacles wrapping around him, injecting venom that caused excruciating pain and rapid death. Holmes examines the creature from a safe distance. It's enormous, its bell perhaps 3 feet across, trailing those deadly tentacles through the water. This specimen has drifted into the bay, Holmes explains to Murdoch. The tides brought it here, and it became trapped in the shallow lagoon where Macpherson swam. He encountered it during his swim, became entangled in the tentacles. The venom caused those welts and triggered the convulsions that killed him. But the dog? Murdoch asks, still shaken. Holmes gestures to the water. Your dog must have entered the water, perhaps chasing a stick or investigating something. It encountered the same tentacles. The creature doesn't attack. It simply floats, and anything that touches those tentacles receives a dose of venom. So tell me, Detective, did you consider a natural explanation? Most mystery readers expect a human murderer, poison, weapon, conspiracy, but sometimes death comes from nature, accidental encounters with creatures whose defense mechanisms prove fatal to humans. Holmes reports his findings to Inspector Bardell, who's both relieved and disappointed. Relieved that we don't have a murderer loose, Bardell admits. Disappointed that there's no one to arrest, no justice to be served. It was simply a terrible accident, Holmes nods. Nature doesn't murder. It simply is. Macpherson was unlucky enough to swim in the wrong place at the wrong time. Maud Bellamy is devastated by Macpherson's death, but grateful to finally understand what happened. At least I know he didn't suffer long, she says through tears, and I know Ian Murdoch wasn't responsible. That had been haunting me, the thought that jealousy might have driven him to murder. Murdoch himself is shaken by his close call. Had Holmes not stopped him, his grief-driven impulse to approach the water might have resulted in a second human victim. You saved my life, Mr. Holmes, he says quietly. I was about to walk into the water, drawn by, I don't know what, grief, guilt, the need to understand what had happened. I would have died the same way Macpherson did. The jellyfish is eventually washed out to sea by the tides, drifting away to deeper waters where it poses no threat to swimmers. But the beach remains closed for several days as a precaution, and signs are posted warning of dangerous marine life. Holmes reflects in his narrative. The lion's mane case taught me that even in retirement, mysteries find their way to my door. More importantly, it reminded me that not all death is murder, not all mysteries have human villains. Sometimes tragedy is simply the intersection of human and nature, with no malice on either side. Macpherson's dying words, the lion's mane, were his attempt to warn others. Holmes continues, in his final moments, despite excruciating pain, he tried to identify what had killed him. That took remarkable presence of mind and courage. His warning, though cryptic, ultimately provided the key to solving the mystery. Watson, when he later reads Holmes's account, adds his own note. Holmes's narrative of the lion's mane case demonstrates his versatility as an investigator. Most detectives focus solely on human criminal behavior. Holmes understood that mystery can come from any source: human malice, natural phenomena, or simple accidents. His broad knowledge of natural sciences proved as valuable as his understanding of criminal psychology. The case also highlights the dangers of assuming murder when death occurs mysteriously. Had local authorities focused exclusively on human suspects, they might have charged Murdoch with a crime he didn't commit, while the real danger, the jellyfish, remained unidentified, potentially claiming more victims. Years later, marine biologists studying jellyfish populations in the English Channel note the case in their research papers. The lion's mane jellyfish, while not uncommon in British waters, rarely drift into shallow coastal areas where humans swim. Macpherson's death was extraordinarily unlucky, a convergence of unusual tides, warm weather that brought him to the beach, and a drifting jellyfish in exactly the wrong location. Holmes keeps careful notes on the case, including sketches of the jellyfish and documentation of the venom's effects. This information, he notes, may prove valuable to medical researchers studying marine toxins. Macpherson's death, while tragic, can contribute to knowledge that might save future lives. The case serves as a reminder that nature, while beautiful, can also be deadly. The same ocean that provides recreation and sustenance also harbors creatures whose defenses can kill humans in minutes. Respect for nature's power is not paranoia, but wisdom. In his final reflection, Holmes writes, "The lion's mane case was my first investigation after retirement, and it proved that a detective's mind cannot simply be turned off. When mystery presents itself, The urge to solve it remains irresistible, but it also reminded me why I chose this quiet life. Dealing with jellyfish and their victims is somewhat preferable to the human monsters I faced during my active career. Join me next time as we investigate The Veiled Lodger, where Holmes uncovers the tragic story behind a reclusive woman who hides her disfigured face and learns that sometimes the real monsters wear human faces while their victims are mistakenly called beasts. Note, The Lion's Mane is one of only two stories narrated by Holmes himself, the other being The Blanched Soldier. It showcases his retirement life and demonstrates that his brilliant mind remained active even in seclusion. The case is notable for having a non-human culprit. The Cyanea capillata jellyfish's sting can indeed be fatal, making this one of the most scientifically accurate stories in the Holmes canon.